Welcome to the night shift on Ward C, Rookie. It's quiet up here, most of the time. Now, I'm going to tell you the two most important rules, and they're not in any handbook. Rule 1. You keep your charts updated to the minute. No exceptions. Rule 2. If you're in a patient's room and you feel the air get cold, and you get that feeling on the back of your neck like you're being watched, you are. That's the matron. She's just checking your work. Don't panic. Just focus on your patient, be professional, and she'll leave you be. But if you get sloppy, if you cut a corner, she'll help you. And trust me, Rookie, the nurse's voice drops to a dead serious whisper. You do not want her help. The night shift on a long-term care ward is a world of its own. A quiet, sterile bubble governed by the beep of monitors and the soft hiss of oxygen. I was new to Ward C, the oldest wing of St. Michael's Hospital. The other nurses were great, but they all had this weary superstition about the place. They called it the Watcher's Ward. They told me the stories, the warnings. I smiled and nodded, but I'm a woman of science, of medicine. I believe in what I can see and measure. That first night was peaceful. Just the quiet rhythm of my rounds, the soft breathing of my sleeping patients. The silence didn't feel threatening. It felt calm. I walked the long, polished corridors under the steady, buzzing hum of the fluorescent lights, feeling a sense of purpose. I was here to heal the living. I had no time for the dead. The first sign was small. So small, I thought I was just tired. I was in room 308, checking on an elderly patient, Mr. Gable. When I came in, his blanket was rumpled at the foot of his bed. I turned to check his foredrip, my back to him for maybe 10 seconds. When I turned back, the blanket was perfectly, flawlessly folded at the foot of the bed, the corners creased with a military precision I could never achieve. Mr. Gable was fast asleep, his breathing deep and regular. It was impossible. I stood there, my mind racing through logical explanations. A muscle spasm? A dream? Nothing made sense. I felt a sudden, intense chill and the distinct, unnerving feeling of being judged, of having my own Messier folding skills found wanting. I quickly smoothed out the blanket, a strange, irrational flush of embarrassment creeping up my neck. It was just a blanket. It had to be. An hour later, I was at the nurse's station, catching up on my charting. The station is a small island of light in the sea of darkness. I took a sip of my cold coffee and happened to glance up at the darkened glass of the ward's main doors. I saw my own tired reflection looking back at me, but I wasn't alone. Standing behind my reflection, a few feet down the hall, was a tall woman in an old-fashioned gray nurse's uniform. She was just standing there, her hands clasped behind her back, her posture ramrod straight. Matron Elspeth. Her face was a pale, stern blur, but I could feel her gaze on me, cold and analytical. My heart seized. I spun around in my chair so fast I nearly fell. The hallway was empty. Utterly, completely empty. I was shaking. It wasn't a story. It wasn't a legend. The Watcher was real, and she was on duty. I couldn't just let it go. The next day, I went down to the hospital archives, a dusty, forgotten basement room. I found what I was looking for in a staff ledger from the 1940s, back when this place was a sanatorium. Matron Elspeth Gable. Her photograph showed a woman whose face seemed carved from granite, her eyes holding an unnerving, clinical intensity. The records described her as a legend, a nurse of impossible standards. She was revered and feared. Her motto was written in the margins. The attentive nurse is the hand of God. The inattentive, the hand of death. She believed in nurses' constant, unwavering observation was the key to healing. She died in 1949, not in a bed, but in her office at the end of a 72-hour shift, apparently from sheer exhaustion. She had literally worked herself to death, never leaving her post. And now I knew. She still hadn't. Knowing her story made the haunting more intense. She started to help. One night, a patient's heart monitor started beeping erratically. I was at the far end of the hall and started running. But before I even got there, the beeping stopped. When I burst into the room, the patient was fine. The loose electrode on his chest had been perfectly reattached. He was asleep and hadn't even stirred. Another time, an IV bag that was about to run dry was mysteriously replaced with a full one from the supply cart. She was always one step ahead of me. It wasn't comforting. It was terrifying. It felt like a constant silent performance review. She was watching my every move, and every time she helped, it was a quiet, damning judgment on my own speed, my own attentiveness. She wasn't just haunting the ward, she was managing it. The night of the storm was when it all came to a head. The power was flickering, the wind howling outside. My patient in 308, Mr. Gable, the man from my first night, went into cardiac arrest. A code blew. I hit the alarm, the klaxon blaring, through the ward and grabbed the crash cart. My training took over. I was a whirlwind of focused energy, ripping open sterile packages, preparing the defibrillator, shouting out vitals to the operator on the phone. The backup generator kicked in, but the lights were dim and unsteady. In the strobing, chaotic flashes of the emergency lights, I could see her, Matron Elspeth. She was standing at the foot of the bed, not as a faint shimmer, but almost solid, her form solidified by the crisis. Her arms were crossed, her stern face a mask of intense, critical observation. She was watching me, judging my every move in the most important moment of my career. The pressure was immense. I had the defibrillator paddles charged. "Clear," I shouted. But as I went to place them on Mr. Gable's chest, my hands hit an invisible, freezing cold barrier. I couldn't move them forward. I looked up. Matron Elspeth was no longer at the foot of the bed. She was beside me, her translucent form leaning over the patient, her ghostly hands hovering where mine should be. She was shaking her head, a silent, stern no. In her time, they didn't have defibrillators for a failing heart. They used injections of adrenaline, a treatment now considered a last resort. I saw a syringe on a nearby tray tremble, and then slowly begin to lift into the air on its own. She wasn't just watching anymore. She was intervening. She was trying to save him with her own outdated medicine, and in doing so, she was going to kill him. My modern science was in a direct, terrifying conflict with her ghostly experience. My fear was instantly replaced by a surge of pure protective fury. This was my patient, my ward, my shift. I looked directly at the ghostly matron, at her cold, judgmental eyes. "Get out of my way," I said, my voice low and steady, a command, not a plea. I pushed forward against the cold, my own will of physical force against hers. His heart has stopped. This is the protocol. I am the nurse here. Now let me do my job. I shouted the final words. For a long, silent moment, our wills were locked. In a battle over the patient's body, her ghostly form flickered violently, her stern expression wavering with a flicker of something. Surprise? Respect? The cold barrier vanished. The syringe clattered back onto the tray. She had yielded. I didn't waste a second. Clear. I yelled again, and this time the paddles made contact. The jolt arched through Mr. Gable's body. The monitor beeped. A steady, rhythmic, beautiful beep. A stable rhythm. He was back. The emergency team burst in moments later, taking over. As they worked, I stumbled back against the wall, my legs weak with adrenaline and relief. I looked for her, for Matron Elspeth. She was standing in the doorway, no longer solid, but a faint, translucent shimmer again. She wasn't looking at the patient anymore. She was looking at me, and her expression was different. The stern judgment was gone, replaced by a look of approval, a single, slow, respectful nod. Then she turned and faded completely, vanishing into the sterile white wall of the corridor. The test was over. I had passed. The ward was finally, truly mine. I've been the head nurse on Ward C for 5 years now. The story of Matron Elspeth is part of my orientation for every new rookie. I tell them her rules. I tell them to be attentive, to be professional, and I tell them not to be afraid. I never saw her again, not really. But sometimes, on the longest, quietest nights, when I'm standing at the nurse's station, I'll feel a sudden, faint chill. I'll look up at the reflective glass of the doors, and for just a fraction of a second, I'll see 2 reflections looking back. My own, and that of a tall, stern woman in a gray uniform, standing right behind me. She's not judging anymore. She's just watching, a silent partner on the night shift. And I just give a small nod back, a quiet acknowledgement from one head nurse to another. Because on this ward, you're never truly alone.